أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين بالقاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome to the Tuesday night Dua Tawassul program. Just a quick announcements inshallah for the upcoming majalis. The series of 3 majalis starting from Thursday night with our Shab Juma program. We will be commemorating the wafat of Hazrat Masuma Qum Salamullahi alayha. Inshallah, the majlis will be in English, followed by the Matam and inshallah Nahy. On Friday night, majlis of the Shahadat of our 11th Imam, Imam Hassan Askari alayhi wassalam, will take place in Urdu. Maulana Syed and Rizvi inshallah will address that majlis. And then on Saturday night, the last of the series of majalis, will be recited by Maulana Sheikh Shabar Mahdi. That majlis will be in English. All programs, inshallah, will start at 8 p.m. Online, and you can log on to be part of these programs, inshallah. Let's get started with Dua Tawassul. That majlis will be in English. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إني أسألك وأتوجه إليك بنبيك نبي الرحمة محمد صلى الله عليه وآله يا أبا القاسم يا رسول الله يا إمام الرحمة يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا إن الله يا أبا الحسن يا أمير المؤمنين يا علي بن أبي طالب يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا فاطمة الزهراء يا بنت محمد يا قرة عين الرسول يا سيدتنا ومولاتنا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيهة عند الله اشفعي لنا عند الله يا أبا محمد يا حسن بن علي أيها المجتبى يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا عبد الله يا حسين بن علي أيها الشهيد يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن الحسين يا زين العابدين يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا جعفر يا محمد بن علي أيها الباقر يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا عبد الله يا جعفر بن محمد أيها الصادق يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا موسى بن جعفر أيها الكاظم يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا ووصلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن موسى أيها الرضا يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها إن الله اشفع لنا إن الله يا أبا جعفر يا محمد بن علي أيها التقي الجواد يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن محمد أيها الهادي النقي ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا محمد يا حسن بن علي أيها الزكي العسكري يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا وسي الحسن والخلف الحجة أيها القائم المنتظر المهدي يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. Ask for your hajat from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. يا سادتي وموالي إني توجهت بكم أئمتي وعدتي ليوم فقري وحاجتي إلى الله وتوسلت بكم إلى الله واستشفعت بكم إلى الله فاشفعوا لي عند الله واستنقذوني من ذنوبي عند الله فإنكم وسيلتي إلى الله وبحبكم وبقربكم أرجو نجاة من الله فكونوا عند الله رجائي يا سادتي يا أولياء الله صلى الله عليهم أجمعين ولعن الله أعداء الله ظالميهم من الأولين والآخرين آمين رب العالمين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين بالقاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يؤمنون بالله واليوم الآخر ويأمرون بالمعروف وينهون عن المنكر ويسارعون في الخيرات وأولئك من الصالحين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. The verse that I chose for tonight's brief discussion is from Surah Al Imran, ayat number 114. Now, while there are so many discussions that could be addressed looking at this ayah, as I will translate, you'll understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says they have faith in Allah and the last day, and bid what is right and forbid what is wrong. And they are active in performing good deeds. يُسَارِعُونَ فِي الْخَيْرَاتِ. Those are among the righteous. So the discussions could be in reference to faith in Allah and Qayamat. Could be about Amr bil Maruf wa Nahy Anil Munkar. Could be about hastening to do good. يُسَارِعُونَ فِي الْخَيْرَاتِ. And might as well be about those who are righteous in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As the Ayyam Aza are, and you will find out what the discussion will be about. But as the Ayyam Aza are coming to an end, only a few more days until officially the period of Gham, which we have sort of made it for ourselves, which of course does not have any Islamic or Shari'i background, because if that was the case, all of the Shias around the world would be commemorating and starting at the same time. They all start at the same time, but they would all be finishing at the same time, which tells you that it has to do with our cultural ways of making it to be up until the 8th of Rabiul Awwal. But it makes sense because that is when the Shahadat of our 11th Imam is. And the day after marks a very important day, which is the beginning of the imamat of Imam of her time, Imam Mahdi, Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. And there are many other occasions that are associated with 9th of Rabiul Awwal. It is Eid al-Zahra. Now, there might not be exact references as to on that particular day. There was farhat, or signs of being joyous in the family of Ahlul Bayt, because that event took place when Mukhtar had taken the revenge 4 or 5 years later after the events of Karbala. With that said, a question that I want to pose tonight, which is, did we learn anything from the sacrifice of Imam Hussein and the example of those who tried to stop Imam Hussein? Or did we learn something this time around? Because every year Ayyam Azar come and we need to evaluate that what have we gained, and hopefully we all have gained something. So a few points regarding this ayat which I chose, and the aspect of the ayah which I will discuss briefly is Amr and Nahy. That it is possible that our reminder doesn't have any effects now, but will as the time passes by. You look at the sacrifice of Imam Hussein والسلام, that speaks volumes. A lot of people thought Imam Hussein was killed, martyred in the plains of Karbala. He announced that I rose for Amr bil Maruf wa Nahy Anil Munkar. And even though he was martyred at that time, and Yazid and his people thought that, they had won and they were victorious, and Imam didn't really make any impact as far as taking number of casualties from the enemy's forces. But as the time passed by, injustices of Banu Umayyah and their oppression over Ahlul Bayt became apparent, and they realized the loss that they had suffered from the hands of Imam Hussein and his companions. Albeit there were only 72 of them. So what this tells you is that Nahy Anil Munkar might take some time for the effects to come about. So don't give up. And the best example is Imam Hussein, who's saying that I'm standing up for Amr bil Maruf and Nahy Anil Munkar. In the year 61 after Hijrah, Imam is martyred. Not until 4 or 5 years later that Mukhtar takes the revenge. And even then, Banu Umayyah still were in power up until the Banu Abbas when they took over. And then that silsila continued, even the oppression on Ahlul Bayt continued. But world realized one thing, what Imam Hussein had set out to do. Number two, creating an ambience, an atmosphere is virtuous itself, even if it may not, you may not get to your ultimate result, but creating that atmosphere, that's our duty. For example, when a person prays salat individually, it is recommended, highly recommended, and I'm sure all of you do this, that you recite adhan and iqamah. When you say hayya ala salah, hayya ala falah, although you're by yourself, nobody's listening to you, but still you're creating that ambience that if people were listening, they would come and join you. Hayya ala salah. So that creating of that ambience is still virtuous. By performing Nahy Anil Munkar, we take away the pleasure of the enjoyment out of the sin. So there's a sin which is people are doing, and we do Nahy Anil Munkar, we condemn it. What are we doing? We're taking the pleasure away from them. They might be enjoying what they have done, but when we condemn it, it leaves a bad taste. So they may ponder. The sinner doesn't feel comfortable sinning next time then. And then excuse for us an ultimatum upon the sinner. Quran states that stating the truth is giving ultimatum to the sinner. So you cannot say tomorrow that nobody came forward and told me that this is wrong what I'm doing. So all of these could be the reasons that gives you incentive to perform this important duty. Sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far Sadiq والسلام, narrates that Allah spoke to Hazrat Musa والسلام, and informed him that I show grace to the children whose fathers try to do good. If the parents are righteous, the children receive the blessings, and I will recite the hadith, which is vice versa as well, on the contrary. So here it leads to a point, a segue to the question that I had asked. Have you not learned anything from the sacrifice of Imam, or those who try to stop Imam from doing this Nahy Anil Munkar? I look at it from the perspective that Imam, when he made his intentions clear, that he's rising to do what? Nahy Anil Munkar. And whoever's getting in the way is trying to stop Imam from doing Nahy Anil Munkar. So that leads us to the understanding of a silent community, which Quranic or the Riwayat talk about being a dead community. Quran iterates that walakum fil qasasi hayatun ya ulil albab. There's a life and signs of life for you in retribution. So if the killer is given severe punishment, it will create a safer environment for future generations. Let the activists protest the laws set by Islam, and they will never come to an agreement why Islam said this, why Islam said that. You shouldn't be fooled, though. When these activists, they come about criticizing some of the laws, which might be harsh in nature, that Islam has set forth for some people, this shouldn't lead you to start doubting in these laws. They're all divine laws set by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, given to us by his messenger, and passed down from imams after imams. So therefore, be very careful when these laws are under attack, and how should you defend and stand up for it, even if you don't know how to defend and don't know much about it. We read in a hadith where Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib والسلام, he says, Man taraka inkar al-munkar biqalbihi wa yadihi wa lisanihi fahuwa mayyitun bayn al-ahya. Very beautiful. Imam والسلام, says that one who doesn't oppose evil with his heart, with his tongue, with his hand, in other words, he doesn't differentiate between good and bad, he is a dead person walking between those who are alive. So that person might be breathing, doing all the things which normally people who are alive are associated with those who are alive, but he's walking dead amongst alive. So remaining silent actually has no benefit, but there's a lot to lose at the same time. Who would understand this better than us, living in the era where terror threats are so frequent? Of course, with this pandemic, a lot of things have stopped, which makes you wonder as to how those things are no longer happening. Were they just there to divert our attention from the real issues? So we live in a time where, terror attacks are so frequent that citizens are requested to do what? By law, to keep their eyes open. If you see something, say something. What is that? If you see something, say something. In Islamic terminology, it's Nahy Anil Munkar. It's because if you don't say something when you've seen something which is, suspicious, if you don't say something, it could come back and harm you and bite you. So for the sake of your own safety and for the sake of security and the safety of everyone in your surrounding, when you see something suspicious, you go ahead and say something. And of course, to the law enforcement agencies. Similarly, when you see something dubious going on, it is your duty to do Nahy Anil Munkar. All of these are easy to understand. And we believe that what Imam Hussein set out to do was partially Nahy Anil Munkar. There were a lot of other objectives and aims that Imam had. But if you just take that one aspect of it, how is it reflective and could be upon us today as well? When you read Surah Asr, everybody has that surah memorized, one of the shortest surahs of Quran, that even those who have brought faith and they have brought Iman and they do righteous deeds, We thought all you had to do as believers was to, of course, believe in Allah and to act, right? Iman and amal salih. This is the key to success. But Surah Asr tells you otherwise. It says, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. Does it stop there? It said, no, وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Enjoining that which is haqq, the truth. And of course, enjoining each other in patience and sabr. So just iman and amal salih, according to Surah Asr, would not be sufficient. So it is an observation as well as kalam of Ma'soom alayhi salatu wasalam, that if a sin is done secretly, it doesn't entail danger to general public, as opposed to, of course, a sin done openly, and people can get it, they could be affected by it. And they're able to stop it, but they remain silent. They're asking for God's wrath and displeasure. Yes, those who are not stepping in. Hence we read in Quran, Surah Anfal 25, it states, and beware of a punishment which shall not visit the wrongdoers among you exclusively. So beware of a punishment which shall not visit the wrongdoers among you exclusively. That means what? Only they will not be the recipient of the punishment. And know that Allah is severe in retribution. Now when you recite the ziyarat, whether it is ziyarat warith, whether it is ziyarat ashura, whether it is ziyarat arba'in, whether it is ziyarat nahiya, or other ziyarat that we have from Masumin, we can deduce that silence in front of sin is an approval and a sort that makes us to be the partners in crime. You remember the segment? وَلَعَنَ اللَّهُ أُمَّةً سَمِعَتْ بِذَلِكَ فَرَضِيَتْ بِهِ. We recite this, and we will recite towards the end. Shabbat Jummah, you recite Ziyarat Tawarith, you recite it towards the end. That, what does it say? May Allah take His mercy away from. May Allah send His la'nat upon the people who were pleased when they had heard of that. Not pleased in a sense, oh, they felt very good. Good thing happened. Even when they remained silent after hearing such atrocities. So many people remained silent. But there were many people who stood up, like the Tawabin. You give them some credit. Or the Qiyam of Mukhtar al-Thaqafi, who stood up, didn't remain silent. The Qiyam of Abdullah ibn Hanzala and the event of Harra that took place. The Qiyam of other individuals. All of this is what? This is that they did not remain silent when they heard about the atrocity. So Allah addressed the Jews in the time of Rasulullah that why did you kill the previous messengers? This is connecting to that hadith that I said, if fathers do good, the children benefit from this good deed. Now look at the reverse. So Jews were addressed in the time of Rasulullah that why did why did you kill, for example, the previous messengers? Where it was their ancestors, they weren't there. It was their ancestors who had committed this crime. But since the children were satisfied with the crime of their ancestors, God criticized them as well. Well, we know that the murderer of Amir al-Mu'mineen was that one person. Of course, there was a planning that went about, but there was this one person who struck Ibn Muljam, La'natullah alayh. But on the night of 19th of Ramadan, we recite what? Allahumma la'an qatalata Amir al-Mu'mineen. Allah have la'nats and la'nat on the killers of Amir al-Mu'mineen, since many people were okay with it. So, condition of silent nation on judgment. Prophet narrates that by God, a group of people from my nation will be raised from their graves in Qayamat in the form of, hear this, monkeys and pigs. And that is due to the fact that they had the ability to perform Nahy Anil Munkar, but they didn't. It is not only the duty of people who are in some sort of power, people who should do it, such as scholars, but it's the duty of everyone. A practicing alim in the time of Prophet Yunus والسلام, did Nahy Anil Munkar, which saved the lives of many people and saved them from the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because Hazrat Yunus had left. He left, even to the extent that Allah went on and said in Quran, La takun ka sahibil hut. Don't be like him, because he left in the state that he was angry from his people. And he said, Allah will send his adhab onto you. But this alim, he convinced people that this is the Nabi of Allah. If he makes dua, it'll happen. And he was able to instill that fear into their hearts. So it averted the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from coming. So one person can do that. Those who broke the silence, Ibn Sakit, for example, one of the companions of, he witnessed many Imams, Imam Rada, Imam Jawad, Imam Hadi, for example. At the same time, he was teaching the kids of Mutawakkil Abbasi. One day, Mutawakkil asked him, who is superior, my sons or Hassan or Hussein, the sons of Ali ibn Abi Talib? He remained silent for some time, but then he broke his silence. He couldn't take it anymore. And he responded by saying what? Qambar, the slave of Ali, was superior to you and your children. Forget about Hassan and Hussein. You're comparing your kids to Hassan and Hussein. Qambar, who was the ghulam of Ali, he was superior to you and your children. Mutawakkil was not expecting this sort of answer. And of course, it had Ibn Sakid get killed. So I know this is a lengthy discussion and it will not come to an end that easily, and I have run out of my time. But again, need to ask ourselves this question that I had posed in the beginning to you, that as Ayyam Azha are coming to an end, didn't we learn anything from the sacrifice of Imam Hussein and the example of those who tried to stop Imam Hussein from doing Nahy Anil Munkar? If we didn't, then what is the use? Make sure that we are able to apply those very initial words of Imam, where he said, La inni lam akhruj ashiran wala batira, wala mufsadan wala zalima. إنما خرجت لطلب الإصلاح في أمة جدي أريد أن أمر بالمعروف وأنهى عن المنكر. All I want to do is أمر بالمعروف and nahi anil munkar, and reform in the community, in the community of my Jad. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gives us the tawfiq and ability to follow these commands and the teachings of Sayyid al-Shuhada. We learn from these Ayyam Azha, by these commemorations that we have, that we're able to put into practice what Imam alayhi salatu wasalam is asking us to do. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdu lillahi rabbil alameen. Mutawajjih ziyarat. Assalamu alaikum ya Rasulullah, assalamu alaikum ya Nabi Allah, assalamu alaikum ya Habib Allah, assalamu alaikum ya Khiyarat Allah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, assalamu alaikum ya Abu Abdullah, assalamu alaikum ya Rasulullah, assalamu alaikum wa ala jaddika wa abik wa ala ummika wa akhik wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, assalamu alaikum ya Gharib al-Ghuraba, assalamu alaikum ya Mu'in al-Du'afa wal-Fuqara, assalamu alaikum ya Shams al-Shumus wa Anis al-Nufus, ayyul matfun bi'abdatu Sali ibn Musrada wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, assalamu alaikum ya Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman, assalamu alaikum ya Imam al-Insi wal-Jan, assalamu alaikum ya Sharik al-Quran, ajjalallahu ta'ala farajak, وسهل الله مخرجك وظهورك وجعلنا من أعوانك وانصارك ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم صل على محمد